That last meeting, February 5th, 99. Okay, your father passes away 3 years later, which is what, June 10th of 02, I think, right?
02.
02, right.
61 years old, June 10th of 02.
Right, June 10th of 02.
Right.
Have you ever seen that recording? Because I know it was being recorded.
Yeah, I have it. I have it, and we used it as evidence in our trial, in my last case.
So you ever sit there and watch a conversation between you and your dad?
It's emotional to watch it now.
I can only imagine.
On my own time. Look, when I'm missing him, I'll have a couple of scotches by myself. I'll pop that DVD in, and I love seeing John Gotti be John Gotti. I love seeing him be John Gotti. That's it. I love him, and from here up, he's the old John Gotti. You could see it in his eyes. He came to life on that visit. Like, he's lecturing me a bit, and then all of a sudden, he looks at me, and he says, "You know something, John?" He says, "What I wouldn't do. One more time. And all of a sudden his eyes get wide like a lion about to pounce on prey. One more time to go in that courtroom and teach these fucking punks what a man is all about. To show them what a man is all about. What I wouldn't do, John, one more time. He says, and show these fucking guys what this means. He says, you show them, John. You got to show them. I didn't agree with him. I didn't want to become the Teflon Don. I didn't want to. I wanted to take the plea. I forfeited many millions of dollars. They destroyed every business I had. And I figured, and I trusted, and I thought, and again, this conversation is going to almost make us roll into another conversation. So just so you know, because there's so much, you need 10 hours to complete this story. I'm just explaining something to you. So that, his words were, you beat them, you send them packing, they'll never come back. They'll never come back. And I said, Dad, I don't agree with you. He says, that nonsense. They'll never come back, John. Tighten their asses up. They'll never come back. These mutts will never come back, he said. And maybe he was right. But I believe this. He was right in the respect that I said, if I take the plea, I'm not you, Dad. They don't want me. I'm not you. I'll forfeit whatever they need. I'll be home in 7 years. I can raise my children and we can move on. He says, John, these are his words and they're prophetic. In this respect, he was right. He says, John, once they get you in, they're not letting you go. I says, no, Dad, they don't want me. I'm not a threat to them. You're John Gotti. I'm not. I'm just John Gotti. That's it. I'm the guy who opened the door, who held the door open for John Gotti. And no, he said, once they get you in, John, they're never letting you go. And he was right. They got me in. I took that plea. And I said, I fought a couple of subpoenas while I was in prison. I fought a couple of subpoenas. Because remember, what led us to that point, I had 2 indictments. I beat one from the bench, and I'm pleading on this one. I'm using this one to take all the guns away from my head. And I had both U.S. attorneys. When did you ever see that? The representative shot caller for the Eastern District, representative shot caller for the Southern District in the same courtroom, and both stood up. Now, here's my legal team. Jerry Shargell, one of the greatest trial attorneys in New York history. Bruce Cutler, he's my 3rd seat. My 2nd seat is Charlie Ogletree, Nelson Mandela's attorney here in the States, who helped rewrite the Constitution of South Africa. Now, I have a dream team. I got power. I've got personality, okay? I'm ready to go to war, okay? That being said, he recently passed away, bless his heart. But I'm ready, and my father knew I just beat them. We just beat one case. They got caught in wrongdoing. They got caught. A special prosecutor got fired for creating leaks on my cases. A special agent got fired and rezoned, maybe to Juneau, Alaska, for destroying evidence because his witness was a pedophile, destroying evidence, shredding notes and destroying evidence. And a special state prosecutor got fired for leaking and destroying evidence. Now, when did you ever see that on one case? 3 different elements all got fired for misconduct in my first case. So I beat the first case. This is spilling into the second case. So my father believed that I had them. He said, John, you got them. This is it. You caught them in misconduct. You did everything you were supposed to do. I'm proud of you. Now finish it. Take them to trial and break their holes and send them packing. And I didn't see it that way. I said, I'm going to, and I knew I could beat the case. I knew I could beat that case. And I said to myself, I says, but to what end? If I win, I can't move on with my life. I have to remain who I am. And I become in their words, their eyes, the Teflon Don. I become it. I just beat them and I beat them in 87. So I'm on a roll. I beat them in 87. I beat them in 89. I just beat them a case now in 98. Now, if I beat this fourth case in a row, I said, I'm the Teflon Don. I can't get out anymore. I'm trapped. And I didn't agree with my father. And I left that prison misrepresenting to him. I said, I'm going to fight. You're right, Dad. You're right. You're right. That's right. That's right. And then when I went home and I saw my daughter, and I got a little emotional talking to my daughter, and she says, she was at that time, she was about 8 or 9 years old. And I looked at her and I says, these kids are lost. I had spoke to my oldest boy and I says, if I fall and get life, they're done. They're done. If I give them 7 more years, my wife can hold it down for 7 more years. She'll hold it down for me. And my brother, my immediate family will hold it down for me. I'll get home and I'll get things on track here. Not just for my family, because remember, my father put his whole family on my shoulders. My mother, in essence, who's my mother, I adore her, but in essence, she became my wife. I've got to hear her complaints. I've got to, make sure everything's okay for my mother. My sisters became my daughters. Okay? My brother became my son. My father's grandkids became mine. I mean, just everything fell on. I had to deal with all these different problems. So I thought we had it under control. I thought it was going to be a great thing. And I said, you know what? He's got this wrong. I'm going to take this plea. I had to forfeit $2.5 million. You know what $2.5 million? You want to put that number up? $2.5 million in 1999. What is that in today's U.S. dollars today?
$7 million.
Okay? I forfeited $2.5 million plus property, 50 acres upstate, 90 acres in Pennsylvania, a building. They destroyed my business.
$5 million today.
Okay, $5 million. It's like you're writing a check for $5 million today. I forfeited all of that. They destroyed my phone business. I had Penn Station on lockdown. They took my whole business, destroyed all my companies. My brokerage company took everything apart. They dismantled it. I gave it all up, and I said, you know what? Fortunes are won and lost every day. I'll come home. I'll rebuild. I still got enough. I could be okay. I'll give them another seven years, and I'll be home, and I'll rebuild. No problem at all. But I'll rebuild completely and totally as a civilian. That's what I thought. And I was only several weeks from being released from prison, and John Gotti's prophetic words came to fruition. Because remember, we had both U.S. attorneys saying that it's no longer in the interest of us with this plea, the resolution of the case. We're done with him, basically, in essence. They promised me. And then James Comey, Donald Trump's tormentor, indicted me. He indicted me.
James Comey.
James Comey indicted me. James Comey's office indicted me right before I was about to be released. They charged me with the Curtis Lee with kidnapping and attempted murder. And now I was facing 110 years. So only weeks. Think about the psychological impact of this, okay? I'm weeks from being released. I gave away my stuff. My fan, all my, I'm a guy with a few dollars. So I had some nice things in prison that I've accumulated. So I gave it all away. I gave nice things away, my sweatsuits, things that I've accumulated over time. That's my life day. Prison becomes your life. I've given it all away. I'm about to go home. And I have a list of all the names of my dear brothers in there who don't have anything. So when I get home, I'm going to start sending them money on their commissary. I'm ready to go home. But I was guarded. I would talk to my wife. My wife would tell me, when you come home, I said, don't speak like that. Don't speak like that in front of the kids. When I'm home, I'm home. When I walk in that door, that's when I know I'm home. But until then, these bastards can come at any time, any moment. And sure enough, they did. Several weeks before my releasal, they came in, they indicted me in that case, and that started from the end of that case to the last case. In 37 months, I got indicted 5 times.
Wow.
And the last one, I was facing the death penalty. I was housed in the death unit in Pinellas County for 6 months until I won the motion. I was moved over. I spent 17 months in solitary confinement.
What was it for?
For nothing. To torture me. They put me in there to break me, to try to break me. Okay? Listen, the things they did, the tactic they employed against me is so unethical. But then again, knowing the adversary and knowing how the adversary presents itself, it certainly is ethical for them because they're hypocrites. They'll tell you, look at the mob guy and look at how bad the mob guy is and so on and so forth. But I got to tell you, I've never seen treachery in any street guy or any mob element that I saw in the United States government. I've never seen that kind of treachery. I've never seen it. You see a guy showing up for trial every single day. You see a guy hawking and selling his diamond watches off his wrist selling homes and businesses, getting hard money loans on his home. My home had no mortgage when I went to prison. My building that I owned had no mortgage on that. Those are assets left to my wife and my kids. By the second trial, I had a $1.3 million mortgage on my home, and the building was already sold off to pay for the third and fourth trials, okay? My assets were gone. I came home busted and broke after the fifth case. 15 years ago, last week I came home. Broke. I got myself right.
How did you make money, John? What'd you do?
Wrote a book. I wrote a 600-page book on my own. Nobody wrote it for me. No ghostwriter. I had written the book myself. I had a lawyer friend of mine who did the editing and typing for me. I don't know how to type. I did everything by longhand. I gave him all the pads, and he typed and edited for me, and I wrote the book by myself. That was a start. Sold those rights to create the Gotti movie, which I made some money on that, and used those monies and invested and moved it along the right way. Helped out on some projects. I'm doing several projects of my own right now, but I got myself right. But to watch the government sit there and take a position, and you see what I'm going through. You went to banks, had them throw me out, had my wife ostracized from lending institutions. Nobody would give me a loan. Even after the hard money guys, they were calling, subpoenaing the hard money guys. They started subpoenaing all my banks, all the lending institutions, so everybody threw us out. We were homeless. Basically, we had no banks to go to. The special agent on my case would follow my wife into the supermarket and tell her, tell your husband to flip, because if he doesn't flip, what's going to happen is your kids are going to be homeless. And she would tell him, fuck off and whatever have you, and that would be that, okay? But this is the tactic they employed against me. Subpoenaed my sister, subpoenaed my brother, subpoenaed all my witnesses, harassed them, sent a rat with a wire on to my mother who's lying in a hospital bed after brain surgery, wired up on my mother to try to get incriminating information against me.
Wow.
This is the tactic that they employed. And then, if you can space it all out, and for us to sit here and walk it through process by process, date by date, would be, you won't make it home tonight for dinner. I can promise you won't, but I can tell you this much. That was the beginning where I told you, which culminated in the end, the fifth trial, which the result was the same, okay, on that trial. But to watch what these guys did along that way, they played very fair the first trial. Held me without bail, held me in 10 South, the terrorist unit that was built for Ramzi Youssef and Sheikh Khalid, the guys who bombed the World Trade Center in 1993. Okay, it was built for them, only 6 cells in 10 South. That's where they housed me for that first trial. Then when the judge got the opportunity to see the evidence and see all the particulars, we won her over. She released me on bail. She then released me on bail. And then she began to turn on the government, and she started seeing the case for the reality of what it was. And we started winning motions, tapes, wiretaps that they didn't want in, that they made of me in prison, and legal visits. They violated out my rights and wiretapped my legal visits. These recordings were now all coming into play. All this stuff is now being allowed in. And I knew after that they would never be able to beat me again, because these tapes exonerated me. They made them, spent millions to make them, and then yet went to suppress them by changing the indictment, dropping the indictment, superseding it, and indicting me 2 years earlier, so not to use tapes that they made in 2004. Okay? This is the tactic they employed against me.
They're brilliant. The brilliant, manipulative, deceptive.
Yeah.
They're the ultimate gangsters, if you think about it, like what they do.
You're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but the last 13 and a half years, I've been working on my first fiction book to write, ever. Fiction book to write. And while I finished this book, a year ago, I got the strangest phone call about one of the characters in the book where the guy wanted to meet with me, and he read the book. And afterwards, is like, wait a minute, am I the villain in the book? This is a story about a character named Asher, who is half Armenian, half Assyrian, whose father was involved in the Iranian Revolution, linked to Savak, working with the Shah, that they escape, and he gets recruited to a secret society. Well, when you go to the secret society, it's been around for a couple thousand years. They've developed some of the craziest leaders of all time, and they test you. There's unique tests that they have at this society where they test to see your emotional mental toughness. One of the tests that they have is very rigorous. It's purely mental. Of course, there's a physical one, but one is mental and emotional. If you're Armenian, if you're Syrian, if you're Persian, this is a book you're going to be reading and saying, holy moly, this is the kind of stuff you talk about in here? Yes. If you're somebody that's fascinated by history, this is a book for you. Characters. There's a technology that this society, secret society, builds where you go into a vault. I won't spoil it for you. When you go down, They have a technology where you get to sit down and watch and have a 3-4 hour conversation with Tupac. You can set up a debate between Karl Marx and Ayn Rand. Karl Marx is in the book, who wrote Communist Manifesto. Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged, is in the book. Marilyn Monroe explains the concept of seduction and sex in the book. When you read the book, it's about development of the next leaders in the world and how they do it and how they've been doing it for many years. And it's also about how to prevent the end of civilization and how this organization goes about doing it. So I've never written a parenting book before, but if I ever wrote a parenting book, this is the closest thing to it because it's all mindset, a lot of crazy stories. Again, 13 and a half years. Trust me, I told myself I will not publish this book until I sell my insurance company and I'm fully disconnected from it, where it's no longer my responsibility 100%. When you read this, if you're a creative person, if you like fiction books, if you enjoyed Atlas Shrugged, or if you enjoy Divergent, if you like books like that, I think you're gonna enjoy reading this book. It's the creative side. Business books is very easy. Here's how you do it. Here's how this how it works. This is very creative. If you haven't placed your order yet, now you can order it on Simon & Schuster, Amazon. I'm going to put the link up below somewhere here, maybe even in my profile. Go order the book and read it. I've never written a book where I can't wait to read your reviews to see what you think about this book. So I'm going on this wild journey, and we have some plans with this book here. If you support the things that I work on, I would appreciate you going and reading the book, order the book on Amazon, and then post a review. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.